Hi, it's Craig from Invest in Liverpool. Thanks very much indeed for getting in touch and for booking in your consultation. Before we chat, I just wanted to really explain a bit more about who I am and what we do. What we're going to look through on this video is a quick introduction to myself, talk about property generally, which properties that we tend to invest in Liverpool, why we think Liverpool is a great city to invest in. Also going to do a bit of a tour of the city, show you around some of the postcodes, some of the properties that we're buying right now, show you what a typical deal looks like, and then finally prepare you for the consultation that you've booked in. Just a quick intro to me then, first of all. So I've sourced around £30 million worth of property for investors, and literally helped hundreds of investors grow their portfolios in Liverpool. Clients typically are chairmen, chief executives, high net worth individuals. We have a lot of clients in London and the Southeast. Also work a lot with overseas investors in places such as Hong Kong, Dubai, Singapore, Australia, or people who have identified Liverpool as the city they want to invest in, and they use myself and our business to do that safely and securely. I'm also an investor myself, obviously. I have a portfolio worth around 1.5 million and always buying properties and looking to add to that personally. I've been lucky enough to win a few awards. Back in 2022, and also been nominated for some awards in 2023 and in 2024 for the work that we do with investors in Liverpool. I'm not going to go through the detail of this presentation, so if you want to sort of the finer details, feel free to kind of watch this back a little bit slower. I don't want this to be a sort of war and peace, but this slide effectively tells us in general why property is such a great investment. Here there are some figures around land values hundreds of years ago and land values today. The simple message here is that the reason property works is because you're dealing with something of which there is a finite supply and an almost limitless demand. And with any commodity where supply is restricted, demand is high, then values in the long term are always going to go up. That's why property prices always go up. The general kind of principle of property investment, I suppose, is threefold. You've got capital appreciation, you add rental income in there, you then have rental growth, so the rent that you set doesn't stay the same, it increases year on year. And the beauty of property is you can times all of that by leverage, because we can use the bank's money to make money. And that's the real superpower of property investing when you compare it to other forms of investment. It's that word leverage, very important. People often ask me which properties we buy. Really important not to go too cheap. And I use this kind of monopoly analogy. If you remember monopoly when you were younger, you had the really cheap properties. We don't want to go too low. The returns there can look good on paper, but generally you're going to get longer voids, higher levels of maintenance, maybe areas of high levels of crime, antisocial behaviour, that sort of thing. You don't want to go too high either, because you're spending too much money and you're not going to get that back in terms of rent. So the graph between property value and rental value isn't linear. It doesn't automatically mean if you spend more, you'll get more rent. So there is a sweet spot, and that is these, I guess we call them the Vine Street properties, the orange properties. And in Liverpool, that's going to be somewhere between 90 to about 120,000 purchase price. It's the sweet spot where you're going to get the most return for the least amount of capital invested. We like to use this target analogy, and again, I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Feel free to pause the video and read through this, but effectively it's about type of property, houses, area, prime investment, regeneration. Clearly Liverpool's got a huge amount going on, which we'll talk about. Growth, looking at sold rates to understand the propensity for capital growth. Established areas, so we're not doing anything off plan, nothing speculative. We're not trying to second guess the market. And finally, tenant demand, really important, obviously, because the tenants will be paying our rent, their rent, our mortgage. And we need to be in areas with really high rental demand, and obviously they're the areas that we target. So just a bit about Liverpool, where Liverpool is, northwest of England. Here we are. The Liverpool City region has 6 council areas. So you've got the 5 boroughs of Merseyside, so Liverpool, Knowsley, St Helens, Sefton and Wirral. And we've also got the unitary authority of Huyton in Cheshire, which is just there. And all of these combine to create the Liverpool City region. In terms of size, the region has a population of around 1.5 million. So why is Liverpool the place to invest? Well, on the basics to start with, we've got an established market, strong economy up here, really high demand for rental properties from lots of different tenant profiles, including working families, couples and single people. That pushes the rents up because we've got a growing urban and suburban population as well. And finally, we've got that classic sort of regeneration blueprint. We'll talk about some regeneration projects in a second, but clearly, if you've got money being invested, then it gives us a really good propensity for capital growth in the city. So you can kind of summarize all of that here. 16 billion in regeneration. Just one of the projects is worth 5.5 billion, and that's the Liverpool Waters project. Liverpool is the 5th largest city in the UK. Some of the highest rental yields in the country, 5 big universities, 4 major hospitals. And what that means is we've got huge rental demand, lower average prices than pretty much any other major city in the UK. And as the investor, what that means for you is a better ROCE, a better return on capital employed. You get more bang for your buck. So again, I'm not going to go through these in too much detail, but there's some interesting numbers here about prices. Feel free to pause the video and go through these in your own time. And this slide really is just more about Liverpool in the over the last sort of, I guess, 5-10 years. Liverpool's not a new thing for property investment. The market's been growing steadily. Even before COVID, so this is not kind of a new fad. The market has consistently performed well and continues to perform well in terms of growth. So just wanted to talk a little bit about the service and what we do. It starts with this video, and your consultation will then follow, where we're going to talk about your requirements in terms of property and if we can help you or not. We're not in a position where we can work with everybody. We are looking for a certain type of client to work with. So that consultation really is more about, are we a good fit for each other? Do we want to work together? If we do decide that we do, then what we'll do is we'll offer you a place with us and we'll onboard you as a new client. We'll then go out and search for a property that meets all of the criteria that we've agreed. We'll bring that in and we'll progress it into legals. So we'll get, as part of our service, you will have access to all of our power team. That includes solicitors, mortgage broker, surveyor, letting agent, anybody that you would need to buy a house. The people that work on our properties will be working on yours. We'll then get that property completed through the solicitors, who will progress it for you, and we'll start the refurbishment. As well as our professional team, you also get access to our build team. So joiners, decorators, gas engineers, electricians, rubbish clearance, blinds companies, carpet companies. We have all of these in place. All of the companies that work on our properties in our portfolio will be working on yours. So they're trusted people that we've known for many years. They will do the refurbishment on your property. When I say refurbishment, I know that can sound like a grand word. It's not going to be a big refurbishment. We're not going to be knocking down walls, building extensions. It's literally going to be a very light makeover. Typically, we will spend around 6,000 per property, freshening it up and getting it ready for a new tenant. So that gives you an idea of actually what we're going to be doing. It's very light as a refurbishment. Once that work is done, we're going to bring in a local letting agent. So we don't run the lettings in-house. We use a professional company for that, a company that's local and has a number of offices in the city. You're in very good hands there. We'll make an introduction for you, and they're going to not only help us find a tenant, but also they're going to manage the property for you in the long term. The tenant process, we are very much involved with you. So we're not just going to leave you alone with that. Once the property is marketed, you will have your choice of tenants, so you will have a number of applications. And what we do is we help you choose the strongest application along with the letting agent, who will then get put forward to full referencing and get moved in. So we stay very much part of the process, right up until the point where the tenant has moved in and the rent is being paid and collected. And that's when our job is completed and we can then take a step back. And we can start hopefully working with you on number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. So this goes through that in a lot more detail. Again, I'm not going to do that right now, but feel free to pause the video on these slides if you're wanting to get a really more detailed idea of the service and what we do. Our fees are $6,000 plus VAT per property. We don't charge all of that upfront. So there's a $2,000 plus VAT retainer, which you pay at the beginning if we onboard you as a new client. And then the balance is paid on exchange of contracts once your house is exchanged. These are just a few testimonials from clients that we've worked with. So Cam recently bought his first property with us and is now buying his second. Dwight is onto his third property with us. So Cam's in London, Dwight's in Australia. These are just some samples of testimonials and clients that we've worked with. Zohaib is a solicitor in London, and he's onto his third property as well. All of these testimonials, by the way, are on LinkedIn, so I'd encourage you to connect with me on there as well, and feel free to look through these in your own time. Just a few more in there as well. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is a quick tour. So I'm going to move across to map of Liverpool, and hopefully you'll be able to see that right now. Here's the map, and just to kind of navigate you, the city region, or the Liverpool city boundary, goes as far north as Litherland up here, and as far south as Speke down here where the airport is, and as far west as sort of as east as far as Prescott and Huyton. So if you imagine a line around here, this is the Liverpool boundary. So a few things to point out. The stars are kind of like major employers, and we'll have a look through some of those right now. So, for example, Liverpool is a port, so the Mersey Docks and Harbour Company are a big employer here. A number of others just will skim through. We've got the Bosch Group in the city centre, Prince's Foods, big food manufacturer. We've got the 4 major universities, so Liverpool John Moores, Liverpool University, Hope University in the south, and Edge Hill University as well. So 4 major universities. We've also got a number of hospitals. We've got the Royal Liverpool Hospital in the city centre. We've also have the Aintree University Hospital just up here, just there actually. And then you've got 2 other hospitals. You've got Alderhay just there, which is the major children's hospital. And finally, you've got Broad Green, which is just there. And that's the specialist in heart and chest surgery. So 4 major hospitals within the city. Other major employers, just to these are just highlights. We've got the Very Group, major online retailer in the south of the city. We've got the airport, obviously, down there as well, Liverpool John Lennon. And a couple of others just to point out. AstraZeneca, very famous company who created one of the vaccines for COVID. And also Jaguar Land Rover, who build, I think it's the Evoque, so a lot of the Evoques I think are built at plants here in Liverpool as well. But they're a major employer down there. Okay, so they're the employers. A couple of other things. Regeneration, let's just look at some examples of that. So probably the largest project right now is the Liverpool Waters. I mentioned that earlier on. So this is the Liverpool Waters project. It runs along the river, a huge piece of land that was dockland that they're really transforming. And you can see that's about halfway through. The new Everton football stadium is part of that project, but it's only one part of the overall. So that's probably the biggest project that we have right now. Other redevelopment, regeneration projects we have. We've got the Knowledge Quarter in Paddington Village. So this is in connection with the universities here at Liverpool. It's a real incredible development. lots of buildings. It's probably about 3/4 way through, and huge amounts of money being spent on new office buildings, hotels, and buildings for the university as well. But that's the Knowledge Quarter in Liverpool. And then the final regeneration project I wanted to just touch on is the new film and TV studios. It's really exciting. So Liverpool's always been used for a lot of external footage for for movies, because of its incredible architecture. I think it's got the most listed buildings than any other city outside of London, Liverpool. So very photogenic city. But what this project means is not only will they be able to shoot the external shots in Liverpool for the likes of Batman and films like that they've done recently, but now they'll be able to create the whole movie here, because they're creating these huge sound stages right here for all the internal filmmaking as well. So the entire films will be able to be created in the local area. So huge job creation there for local people to get involved in that as well. So it's very exciting. Okay, so that's the regeneration. What else have we got on the map? Well, you'll see some purple properties here. These are all properties that we've purchased in Liverpool. So I just want to take you through some of these. So one area that we like really at the moment is this kind of edge lane corridor. This is sort of L7. One of the reasons that we like it is that we have the Liverpool Shopping Park. This was completed, I think it was just before COVID, actually, around that sort of time. So it's very new. It's all finished, and it's about 3 times the size of this photograph here. You've got all the typical retailers, Marks and Spencer's, Boots, H&M, etc., through the retail park. But basically what this means is, if you live in any of these roads, the shopping park is here, by the way, in this section of land just there. If you live in any of these roads here or here, then all you need to do is cross this main road and you've got this fabulous new facility right on your doorstep. So a couple of properties that we've purchased on Middleton Road, 116,000 purchase price, £700 a month, and that gives us a really good 8.5% return on capital employed. Don't worry about these terms too much. I'm going to explain in a bit more detail when we finish up the numbers and how they're all calculated. We also bought another property on the same road, 105,000 purchase price, 625 a month, 8% return on capital employed. So nice numbers. If we move a bit further along, we come to this area. This is the Old Swan area, very popular location. It's dominated by a couple of major supermarkets. So you've got Tesco's just here, right in the corner to one of the Tesco superstores. We've also got an Aldi supermarket here as well. So 2 major supermarkets just there. And a really good range of properties. So if you want a really big property, we spent 120,000 on this really large 3-bedroom end terrace, 700 a month it let for, 8% return. Coming down a little bit in terms of price, large 2 beds, 110,000. So 650 a month, 7.6% return. And then finally, depending on your budget, a very basic 2 up, 2 down, really nice little house for as little as 90,000. This actually already had an existing tenant, and that can be a really good opportunity for you to reduce the amount of money you put in, because the refurb was actually 0 on that, because we didn't do anything because it already had a tenant. So if you're looking for a way to reduce the amount of capital that you need, so typically capital you're going to need around 40 to 45. If you want to keep that to the lower end, sort of 40 or even a bit less, then it's well worth considering property that's already got a tenant. Obviously, we're very strict about the tenants that we inherit. They have to pass a lot of checks. We meet them in person. So we're very careful about the types of tenants that we take on. Okay, moving just a little bit further north, we come to some fairly familiar areas. So you'll probably know sort of Aintree. It's very famous for being the place, obviously, where the Grand National takes place. So that's sort of in the north part of Liverpool, just there. It's really close to one of the major hospitals, Aintree University Hospital. So let's look at an example of a property up in this area. So this was a two-bedroom townhouse, 95,000. We let it for 600 a month and an 8.9% return. So really nice property. Properties in these estates always let really well to junior doctors, to hospital porters, etc., because it's so close just there. So as we've been going around, just looking at some of these properties, you may have seen some of these links. Every time we buy a house, what we do is we do videos before and after just to show the condition as it is now and also the condition afterwards as well. So I just give you an example of a property that we've purchased, what one of our refurbs looks like. So you should be able to see this coming through. I'll just play this on. So if we go inside the property, we can see it's a little bit tired. You know, the carpets are grey. It's a bit grubby, a bit dirty. There's a in there just on the back ceiling, which was caused by a leak from the bathroom above. It was a very minor issue. It was just the seal around the bath, literally something as basic as that. But if you leave those sorts of things, it can start to cause a little bit of damage. So that's all it was. Very easy to fix. If we then have a little look at the kitchen, you can see there's a really nice tiled floor there. So, when you view these properties, immediately in my head, we're thinking, well, that's great. We've saved quite a lot of money there on a nice new floor. And then the kitchen itself, it's a white gloss kitchen. So straight away we think, right, this is great because if we were going to buy this kitchen, it's going to be like 3,000, 4,000. So it's saving that on the refurb straight away. All we need to do is clean it. The one thing that we did need to do with this particular kitchen is just deal with this back door that had this old wooden door on it. And we would never leave a door like that in a rental property. So we put money in the budget to replace that back door. So then if we go upstairs, we'll just run this video on now. And we'll see carpets upstairs, very similar to downstairs, so they all need changing. There was this old bed that we had to take away and dispose of. All of those rooms needed decorating as well, so full redecoration upstairs and downstairs. That includes not just the walls, but all the woodwork as well, the skirting boards, etc. So we're here in the bathroom, and you can see there's a little bit of work to do in the bathroom. You'll notice that there's no shower. The reason there's no shower is this window was actually in the way. So what we decided to do with this property was block out this window, build up a new shower wall just here, take all of these tiles off. The tiles were a bit dated. And then just so that we would keep the ventilation and the light, we would reinstate a window on the right-hand side. So there's still plenty of light coming in. And then we just needed to put the bath panel back on. The bath panel just come off there. So a few bits to do in this property. If we now go and have a little look at maybe what the property looks like once we've finished. So this would be normally a refurb is 10 days to 2 weeks, that sort of time frame. So we can go back in now and just see the property. Now it's all done. So if we just run this on, here we go. So you can see here, all of the walls have been painted. And that old brown staircase behind me, that's all changed, as you can see. I'll show you the carpet that we use. We tend to use this sort of modern, sort of mid grey, I guess it is. The tenants really love this whole sort of white walls and grey carpet look. It works really well. It always gives a bit of a wow factor on the viewings. So we tend to stick to that. If it works, we don't change it. But that all looks great. And then if you remember the kitchen, so what we've done here is clean, literally given it a deep clean, and it came up really well. And then finally, if you look at that back door, you remember the old wooden back door that was there? Well, we had to replace that too. And you know what? That made a really big difference to this property. It lets up so much kitchen. So really pleased with the finish on that. If we go upstairs, bedrooms and the bathroom. So again, all of the bedrooms have been decorated. We use the same carpet as downstairs, so they've got that same grey carpet. By the way, on that, if carpets don't need changing, then uh, we don't change them. We're not going to spend money for the sake of it. It just happens to be that with that particular property, they needed changing. So here's the bathroom. So you can see we've done quite a lot in here. We've blocked up that window. We've used these, taken off all those white tiles. We don't tend to tile now. We tend to use these vinyl sheets. It's a lot quicker, cheaper, and you get a really nice finish. They come in all different colours. And so we've done that. Put the shower up there. A nice shower screen, and then really importantly, we've put the window on the other side because it's great having that light coming in and the natural ventilation as well. We're really pleased with the transformation on the bathroom. So, with regards to budget on this property, the refurb budget was 4,000. We did go over a little bit over. It was probably about 4.5 in the end, because some of the costs of the windows and the door were slightly higher than anticipated, but not much. But you can see, in terms of typically a refurb that we do, it's going to be between 5 and 6, and no more than that. I hope that gives you a good general idea. Okay, so that's it in terms of location. You'll notice like one or two sort of shaded areas here. What we do is, any areas that are very highly populated by social housing, we will tend to sort of shade those. We don't tend to buy in areas that have really, really high levels of social housing. And if there are any areas that are just generally known for being not great, then we'll highlight those as well. If we look at the whole city, I would say it probably amounts to around 5-6% of the whole city. But obviously, it's an important 5 or 6% to know. So we know where to buy and we know where not to buy. Okay, so just sort of finishing off, I just wanted to really run through example of some of the numbers. So if I show you this spreadsheet here, so this is a property. If I show you a blank analyzer, there we go. So we use this analyzer to appraise any property that we make an offer on. So I'll take you through the boxes. Purchase price goes in here. As I've said before, typically your purchase is going to be anything from probably 90 up to about 120. But for this sake, we'll use 100,000 easy, for easy numbers, easy maths. So these are your buying costs. So you've got conveyancing fees, legal fees, we have to pay the solicitor. Mortgage broker fee and or survey fee is going to be around £500. Stamp duty, obviously stamp duty is 5%. So that's going to go in here. And our fees for our hands-free service, 6,000 plus VAT. So the total fees, including all of this for buying costs, so that's professional fees, stamp duty, is going to be around 12,750. You've then got your 25% deposit, which on 100,000 is going to be 25,000. And then your final cost, and this is the one people often forget about, is the refurb. And typically that's going to be around 6,000. So if you add up your professional fees, stamp duty, your deposit, and your refurb cost, that brings you to the total cash needed, which is about 43,000. It's always going to be between 40 and 45 as a general rule. So if you think of your portfolio in chunks of that, you're not going to go far wrong. If you're setting aside, let's say 450,000, you're going to have enough for 10 properties. If you're setting aside 900,000, you're going to have enough for about 20 properties, just to give you a rough idea. Okay, so that's the amount that we put in. So let's have a look at what we get back, because that's what this is all about. So we get paid two ways in property, cash flow and capital growth. Let's look at the cash flow first. So we know in Liverpool, in some of these areas that we've shown you, property purchase of 100,000, we're going to easily let that for £800 a month. Okay, so that's going to give us a gross yield of 8.51%, but gross yield only tells part of the story. So the gross yield is the relationship between the total amount of rent coming in and how much we've paid for the property. Okay, but obviously how much we've paid for the property is not just the purchase price, it's actually the amount of capital that we use is important. So a more accurate determiner of how the property is performing is actually return on capital employed. Okay, and return on capital employed, we measure that in two ways. We measure the return from cash flow and we measure the return from the capital growth. So let's start with the cash flow. £800 a month coming in. We have a number of deductions from that. The biggest deduction is going to be the mortgage, and that's this figure here. At the time of this, buy-to-let mortgages you can get from between 4.75 to 5.25. So 5% is quite a fair indicator for a buy-to-let mortgage. That's going to cost you around £312 a month. You've then got a couple of other holding costs here. So buildings insurance, obviously we have to insure the building legally. We've got management fees. So typically the letting agent will charge you 10% of the rent in management. And then finally, maintenance. Now the maintenance figure is just an allowance. So this isn't a deduction and this is optional for you. But it's good practice to set aside at least 5% of the rent for maintenance. And that's just something that you hold in your account and it builds up and builds up and builds up. And then if anything does happen, if the boiler breaks or if there needs minor repairs or whatever, you've got capital there that you can use to do that work. So that's good practice. Okay, so that's all of the sort of holding costs, if you like. So in this example, we've got 800 coming in, we've got mortgage being paid and these holding costs. And what that gives us then is a net cash flow after all costs of just over £300 a month, 302. Now, 302 works out at 8.3% return on capital. Okay, let me just walk you through how we calculate that. So you've had to put in capital invested 43,750. You're getting back net cash flow 302 a month. Annualized 3,630 a year. Okay, so the return on capital annualized is the relationship between your total income from cash flow and the amount that you've put in. So this figure is in year one, you're getting 8.3% back of the money you put in year one, just from the cash flow. But the beauty of property is we don't just get paid one way, we get paid two ways. Because we also get paid through capital growth as well. Now the thing about capital growth is it's a future thing. So we can't, it's difficult to forecast. So the best way we can do this is we look at the past. And in the UK, if we look at the past over the last sort of 50 years, then we can see that on average, property prices grow by an average of between 4 and 5% every year. So 5% is actually a really good, let's call it a baseline indicator of the performance of the property. But the good news is, even if 5% was all that you achieved in the first year, that would still give you an additional 11% return on the money that you've invested in year one. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a 5% growth give me an 11% return? Well, this is that magic word leverage again that we mentioned earlier on. So we get 5% growth on 100,000, which is the total value of the property. But of course, we haven't had to invest £100,000. We've only had to invest 43,750. So what that means is it's making our 43,750 work extra hard. And that's where the 11% comes in. So it's 11% return from in year one, assuming 5% capital growth. So if you combine these two returns in year one, it's going to give you a combined return of 19.73, just under 20%. And that's assuming capital growth of 5%. Might be more, might be less, but it's a good, let's say, good baseline indicator. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful in terms of the numbers. Feel free to pause this video and have a look through those figures yourself and in your own time. That's really all I wanted to sort of go through with regards to the video and the presentation. We've done our tour. We've done our typical deal. I would encourage you to have a think about why you're investing, because although we've talked a lot about properties, like this isn't actually about property. It's not really even about money. This is about what property can do for us. Okay, so these are the reasons people generally invest with me. Sometimes it's cash flow. They want to supplement income. Sometimes it's financial security. Job security is really, really difficult to find. So having a portfolio gives you that level of security. Sometimes to get better returns, there's no returns. Money in the bank is not giving a return. So if you have spare capital, you really don't want to have that in the bank. You want to have it working for you. And finally, legacy. If you've got a family or you're thinking about having a family, then it's really important to know that you can, pass something on. And we work with a lot of clients that are building legacy wealth. They say, well, I want to leave a house for each of my children, or a portfolio for my child, or whatever. And that's a really nice future planning. Okay, so I'm looking forward to chatting with you. I hope that's been helpful. Basically, when we talk on the call that we've booked, we're just going to find out a bit more about each other. I'm really looking forward to finding out about you, really to see if we're a good fit for working together. If we feel that we are, what we'll do is we'll offer you one of our places and give you the opportunity to reserve that on the day. But really looking forward to getting to know you a bit better. And I hope that's given you a general idea of who I am and what the business does. And yeah, look forward to chatting with you soon.